And today we're going to talk about genetic testing, the future of disease prevention and nutritional optimization. And boy, oh boy, is this a field that is expanding rapidly. Of course, you know, there's all these different things that's happening with mapping of the genome and looking at the DNA. And of course, the DNA, as we remind, is that little device inside our cells that kind of tells us everything that's going on in the body, sends all the messages and stuff. And we've brought back today our testing expert, Katrine Volynsky, who, you know, works with our BioOptimizer testing team. She's the head of the department kind of thing. And she kind of is on the cutting edge of not only this test, but all kinds of tests. If you saw the other ones, I mean, she's amazing. But let's talk today. So welcome to the set.
Thank you, Wade.
So genetic testing, what is it? Where is it going? Why do we use it? I mean, this is such a broad field, I know.
Yeah, that's a huge topic, and obviously, like you said, it's the future. That's what we're going to be seeing more and more coming out. Right now, it's in its beginning stage for normal consumers. So it's been used for a while now with doctors and just as a research, but now we're seeing more and more different kits being available to test our own genetic sequences to see not just where we came from, what our ancestries and things like that, which can be actually very useful in determining your biological blueprint and how, what kind of foods and things will be best for you, and we'll talk about that later. But it also looks at specific, it also tracks specific enzymes, specific DNA strands that can help us prevent certain disease or see how epigenetic testing and epigenetic changes can turn on and turn off certain genes and have certain disease come about or not. So it's an important factor to look at for anybody, especially if somebody, let's say, having a child, because you can actually prevent certain issues with that child by certain supplementation and nutritional practices. Not prevent, but make a huge difference on how those will manifest for the person that's going to be born.
So, for example, wow, that's a lot. So we'll try and branch this down because genetics it's an exciting field, but it can be a complex field as well.
It's a very complex field.
So let me see. So basically, you can take a couple of people. Like, who would take a genetic test? Like, who is this for?
Well, anybody, pretty much. Most of the people that I work with, I usually require genetic testing just to see again, where they're coming from, what is their background, what's been going on for them evolutionary. Because let's say a person that's coming from a northern region is more adept to taking in dairy products or meat products than somebody that's grown up in south part of like equator, where this abundance of fruits and vegetables will make it easier for them to have a certain diet like this. So it's used for dietary predictions, what would be the best diet for, let's say, a person in question. And it's also used for predictions, not predictions, but looking at methylation cycle, which is methylation cycle is extremely important biochemical pathway in our body that is governing a lot of aspects such as DNA production and detoxification of heavy metals and mood regulation and gut health. It's all kind of part of the huge methylation biopathway. So it's important to know where the inconsistencies are in that biopathway, where the DNA is not maybe working properly and you're not getting the most out of your body because of those problems with DNA mutations.
Okay, so now, based on where we're seeing mutations happen a lot more, is like environmental factors, would that influence genetic expression?
Well, genetic expression, of course, influenced by environmental factors, but lifestyle, by your diet, by everything that you take in. And that's why the field of epigenetics is becoming more and more profound, because we can really see how the body can turn on and turn off the genes based on the environment that is being placed in, or for extended periods of time, and the kind of lifestyle the person is leading. So the DNA testing, when it's done, is basically your kind of DNA blueprint. It doesn't mean that you will express those genes. It will depend on your environment. If you, let's say, have a DNA mutation that is not allowing you to absorb B12 really well, and you really challenge that by, having a vegan diet and not supplementing with B12, or having a very stressful lifestyle or some other aspects that will require more B12 usage by the body, then this gene will turn on and will epigenetically express, let's say, and which will lead to other problems that can manifest as depression or even autism and things like that. Is that explainable?
Yeah, so basically what you're saying is this genetic test can show a couple of things. One, what your predispositions might be for, and also what environmental aspects could be causing the expression of that or preventing the expression of that. Is that right?
Well, it won't show what environmental aspects will change person's expression or not, but it will show mutations in certain enzymes that will activate or deactivate pathways in the huge, big metabolic cycle, the methylation cycle. And if you have problems in that methylation cycle, how I usually explain it to people is like you have a house, that's your body, and we have a whole bunch of garbage in it, like heavy metals, the toxins, byproducts of, bacteria or yeast or anything like that. So just metabolic waste, just normal metabolic waste from just living day-to-day life. And you have a door in a house, and this door is the revolving door. So things go in there, and if the revolving door is not working right, they just come back in. So this is what the methylation cycle is like. If you have that revolving door broken, the things that are not supposed to be in the body that you have defenses against or you have detoxification systems for will end up back in the body, and it will cause problems. They will pile up in the cells or deep fat tissues or anything like that. So the methylation cycle is governed by different enzymes, and that revolving door is governed by different enzymes. And those enzymes, we can genetically test whether they're effective or not. If they're not effective and there's problems with those enzymes, then that revolved door is not working really well, and all the garbage ends up back in our house. So once we see those enzymes and we know that there is problems with those specific enzymes, we can optimize that pathway and make that door work really well so the body can take the garbage out of the house, out of your systems, and you end up with a better functioning system.
So ideally, pretty much you can see the relation between your DNA and enzymes, and optimizing both your diet or your enzyme, supplementing enzymes or that sort of stuff can have an influence on these type of things?
Absolutely. Not just supplementing with enzymes, but supplementing with cofactors too, like that help those enzymes work. Things like B12 vitamin or folate, which, we have a huge problem nowadays. A lot of people being told that they need to take folic acid, when they are pregnant. And folic acid is a synthetic form of folate that makes that whole methylation cycle work really well. And unfortunately, it docks in the places where the folate is supposed to be, and that methylation cycle just stops working. So it was seeing the methylation cycle from a DNA point of view, seeing where those mutations are, we can correct those problems and prevent, the revolving door from being broken.
Wow. So, I mean, the future, I know this is a relatively new field and it's kind of expanding rapidly. So what do you see happening in this? Where do you see this going over the long term?
Well, there is lots of potentials. There's different companies developing packages to test again for perfect diets, for the person based on their DNA makeup. Also seeing different disease that you might be predisposed to and starting to work towards preventing them way before they even start manifesting, let's say in your 20s or 30s, starting to supplement with something that you're genetically predisposed for to develop in 60s or 70s, let's say. And also new type of testing, nutrigenomic testing is used by certain practitioners to treat kids with autism, to prevent some behavioral problems, and some of the psychiatrists are using it now to correct the methylation cycle based on DNA to help people with their mental state. So there is a lot of potential for this, and especially in the field of dietary and nutritional supplementation.
Wow, that's amazing. So how do you do a test? Do they got to take a piece of your tissue, or what? How does it work?
There's two types of DNA testing available nowadays. The easiest one is saliva. You basically get a little kit, you spit into the tube, and then get sent back, and the test being sent back to you, the practitioner, and then you work with the practitioner to read it and to identify whether you're epigenetically expressing the certain genes that you are seeing on the test, or certain mutations that you're seeing in your enzymes. And the other type of testing is blood testing. So basically, same thing. You get blood collected, and it's looked at by the lab, and it's a little bit more precise and usually used by more difficult situations like kids with autism, because those working with kids is such a big undertaking, because there's so many different parts that you have to take into account. So it's better to be more precise with that. And it's also tests for more different types of SNPs, there are different types of enzymes. So it's more correct, but it's not as necessary if you're just trying to optimize your health and don't have a very, persisting problem like autism, or let's say chronic fatigue, or Lyme's disease or something like that you can't figure out. So usually I just recommend doing a saliva test because it's more cost effective, and it gives you enough information to correct your diet and to correct your lifestyle.
Now, is this the kind of test that you would get with your medical doctor or an ND, or is there only a special field of person that's doing this?
A lot of IMDs and ANDs are not aware as much about this testing. Usually doctors in functional medicine, again, some of the NDs and nutritionists that are dealing specifically again with autism, it became very popular when one of the doctors, Amy Yasko, started treating kids with autism based on the genomic profile, or doctors that are really interested in gaining Lyme disease or chronic fatigue, or problems that are associated with detoxification cycle and methylation cycle. So it's a unique and small field right now, but it's growing. And I think it will become more prevalent in the future. But right now, there's only specific practitioners that are using it.
Wow, that's really, really exciting. So I want to thank you for joining us today and sharing with us about genetic testing. I know this is, it's obviously a fairly complicated field, and it's great to have those team members that allow you to kind of get these things. And of course, if you're suffering from one of those conditions that you were for that may be very complicated or genetically related, this would probably be the test for you. Is that right? Yeah. So, wow, I learned a lot today. I know we only just scratched the surface there, but we've gone through these last few series of all about testing and the importance of testing, and recognize this, that virtually every person that has achieved the highest levels of performance in any area follows some kind of testing program and gets the right professional to give them the feedback, not just from one, but maybe from several different professionals, so you can get a holistic picture. Remember that Jedi Council of getting the whole look of the whole picture of what's going on, because you never know what that piece is going to be that's going to take you to the next level. So I want to thank Katrine for joining us. I want to thank you for staying here for this lesson and find out this exciting and expanding field. Be sure to check back to the Bioptimizer website, where we'll be going through a lot more of this information and keeping you up to date on the latest developments in this incredible field. And I want to invite you to come back tomorrow, because tomorrow is the last lesson. You're almost there. It's like one more to go. So this one is going to really blow your socks off. It's something that's really coming back and taking all from the head, putting it in the heart. And I just want to thank you for being here for so long. And I want to thank Katrine and for all the Bioptimizer team that's involved in our testing procedure. We're expanding this daily. So if you're looking for testing, go to our site. And again, we'll see you on the next lesson. It's the last one.